"Don't move," he shouted, bursting into the barn with an axe in his hands. On the hay sat a stranger, disheveled, dirty, yet with a strange glimmer in her eyes that did not belong to someone defeated. She inhaled deeply, as if fighting something inside herself, and even in that weakness there was something commanding. Her gaze slid down his arms, stopping at his chest, and for a moment an unexplainable tension filled the air. He tightened his grip on the handle, unsure if he was about to defend himself or drop the weapon entirely. "Say who you are," he demanded, voice low, though inside his chest his heart pounded so loud he feared she could hear it. The woman tilted her head, strands of damp hair falling across her face. "If you throw me out, you'll regret it," she whispered, her tone calm, almost intimate, like a promise rather than a plea. He froze, part fear, part strange pull that refused to let him look away. Behind them, the storm rattled the thin roof, each crash of thunder like a warning. He stepped closer despite himself, the straw crackling under his boots. She didn't flinch, instead, she straightened her back, her eyes never leaving his. "What are you hiding?" he asked, trying to sound steady, though every nerve in his body screamed confusion. Instead of answering, she reached slowly into the folds of her torn coat. His breath caught. Would it be a knife, a letter, nothing at all? Her hand trembled as she pulled something out, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. She placed it carefully on the hay between them without a word. For a second he wanted to demand an explanation, but the look in her eyes stopped him cold. It wasn't fear. It wasn't despair. It was something else, defiance mixed with a plea, strength wrapped in fragility. And in that moment he understood one thing: if he turned away now, whatever chance this was, it would be gone forever. He lowered the axe slightly but did not let it go. "You have one night," he said. "At dawn, you leave. Do you understand?" Her lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. "Sometimes," she said softly, "one night is all it takes." The storm roared again, drowning his reply, and for a brief moment it felt as though the world outside no longer existed. The storm raged, wind slamming against the thin barn walls, but inside the silence between them was louder. He stared at the bundle she had laid down, his pulse racing with questions he refused to ask. If she thought he would simply walk away, she was wrong. "I said one night," he repeated, lowering the axe to his side, "but you'll tell me what's inside that before dawn." His voice was firmer now. "A choice, draw a line, take control." For the first time since she arrived, her eyes flickered with something close to uncertainty. She pulled the cloth closer to her chest, protecting it. "No," she said, her tone cutting but quiet. "Not yet." His jaw tightened. He wanted to demand again, but a sharp crash interrupted. One of the barn doors flew open, slammed by the wind. Rain swept inside, soaking the straw. He rushed forward, bracing the door with his shoulder, fighting to force it shut. For a split second he thought she might bolt, vanish into the storm, but she didn't move. She only watched, clutching the bundle. Finally, with a grunt, he slammed the door back into place and shoved the wooden bar across it. When he turned, his breath heavy, she was standing now, taller than he expected, her posture steady despite exhaustion. "You shouldn't have let me in," she said. "You're right," he replied, stepping closer instead of away. "But I did. And now it's my problem too." That was his choice, he claimed responsibility. Whatever trouble she carried, he was binding himself to it. A gust shook the roof again. The sound of hooves echoed faintly beyond the storm. He froze. No one rode out this far at night, not unless they were looking for something. Or someone. Her face paled. She hugged the bundle tighter. "They can't find me," she whispered. Her voice cracked, raw with fear for the first time. His gut clenched. Whoever they were close. He grabbed his coat from a hook, threw it over her shoulders. "If you want to stay hidden, then listen to me. You stay silent, you follow my lead. The words came out sharper than he expected, but necessary. For the first time, she nodded. Outside, the hoofbeats grew louder. The hoofbeats drew nearer, muffled by the rain, then clearer as they slowed outside the barn. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay silent, and moved toward the door. Through the gap in the wood, he caught the shadow of a rider dismounting. The man outside cursed under his breath, struggling with the reins. "Tracks end here," he muttered to someone unseen. "She must be close." His stomach tightened. Whoever they were hunting, it was her. She gripped the bundle like it was her last possession on earth, her knuckles white. He had seconds to decide. He could push her out, pretend ignorance, or stake himself in the middle of something he didn't understand. He tightened his grip on the axe. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The door rattled. A fist slammed against it. "Anyone inside?" A voice shouted over the storm. He exhaled sharply, then pulled the door open just enough to step outside. Rain drenched his shoulders instantly. The rider turned, a tall man in a dark coat, his face hidden by the brim of a hat. Behind him, another horse shifted restlessly. Two of them. "What do you want?" the farmer asked. The stranger's gaze scanned him, sharp and suspicious. "Looking for someone." "A woman." "She's dangerous." His jaw clenched, but he held his ground. "No one here but me." The rider's lips twisted. "Funny. We were told you're the type who hides people. Soft-hearted." The insult stung, but he didn't flinch. "Storm's bad. You'd better ride on." The man's eyes narrowed, but after a tense pause, he spat to the side and swung back into the saddle. "We'll be back. Don't test us." Hooves thundered off into the night, fading into the storm. He pushed the door shut and leaned against it, rain dripping from his hair. She was standing, trembling, the bundle still in her arms. "They won't stop," she whispered. "You don't understand who they are." Before he could answer, another sound cut through the barn, softer, fragile. A cough. From inside the bundle. His breath caught. He stared at her, his mind racing. The cloth shifted. A small, thin cry pierced the silence. Not a weapon. Not gold. A child. He stumbled back, the weight of his choice crashing down. The storm raged louder, the hoofbeats still echoing in the distance, and in that instant he knew, this was only the beginning. The barn was silent except for the faint cries from the bundle. He stared at the child, his chest heavy, the axe slipping slightly in his grip. "You brought a baby into this storm?" he demanded, his voice sharp, more from shock than anger. Her lips trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on his. "I didn't have a choice." He wanted to push, to demand who she really was, but the baby's whimper cut through his words. Awkwardly, he knelt and reached out. His calloused hands, used to rough tools and soil, hesitated over the tiny form. For a brief moment, the cries quieted as the infant's small fingers brushed his thumb. It was ridiculous, just one fragile touch, yet it disarmed him more than any weapon could. A strange warmth surged through him, colliding with the storm inside his chest. That was his first small victory, the child trusted him instantly. He glanced up, but the woman's gaze was unreadable, a storm of fear and defiance. "You need to tell me who you are," he said, softer now. "And who those men are." Her silence stretched too long. Then, finally, "They'll kill us both if you know." The words froze him. "Not me. Us." She had included him now, whether he wanted it or not. And before he could respond, a distant light flickered through the storm outside. A lantern. Moving slowly, deliberately, across the field. Not riders this time, someone on foot. Searching. He cursed under his breath, yanking the barn's shutter closed, sealing them in darkness. She flinched at the sound, pulling the child closer. "They're not supposed to be here yet," she whispered, more to herself than to him. He caught it instantly. "Not supposed to?" But she turned away, avoiding his eyes, as though she'd revealed too much. The lantern's glow moved closer, painting the cracks in the barn walls with streaks of orange. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to push her out and wash his hands of all this. Instead, he reached for the latch, the axe still in his other hand. "You stay here. If they're coming for you, they'll have to go through me first." His voice was low but steady. He had chosen again, and this time there was no taking it back. The lantern stopped just outside the door. A hand pressed against the wood, slow and deliberate. Then came the voice, calm and chillingly familiar. "Open up. We know what you're hiding." The voice outside the door was steady, too steady. Whoever it belonged to wasn't just another rider caught in the storm. He pressed his back against the wood, holding the latch with one hand, the axe with the other. Inside, the child whimpered again, the sound far too loud in the suffocating silence. "Say nothing," he hissed toward her, though his own throat was dry. The door shook under a sudden, deliberate push. "You can't keep her in there forever," the voice called. "We know what she carries." His chest tightened. He didn't know what that meant, but he knew it wasn't good. He shoved the wooden bar tighter against the door. A crack formed where the lantern's glow leaked inside, lighting her face pale. For the first time, she looked almost broken. "You should give me up," she whispered. "They'll leave you alone." He turned on her, eyes blazing. "You think I'd throw a child into their hands? Or you?" It wasn't a speech, it was raw truth. And yet saying it out loud carved a line across his life, before this night, and after. That was his burden now, whether he wanted it or not. The door slammed again. Dust rained from the beams. The latch splintered. He gritted his teeth. "There's another way out. The back." He motioned toward the rear of the barn, an old hatch half buried under tools. She hesitated, clutching the baby tight, her eyes asking if he was serious. "Go," he ordered. "Now. I'll hold them off." It wasn't bravado. It was necessity. She crouched low, pushing toward the hatch while he braced himself against the front. The wood creaked, then gave. The door burst half open, a shadow forcing its way inside. He swung the axe hard, sparks flying as it struck metal. The stranger carried a blade. Pain ripped through his shoulder as the force knocked him back. He staggered, gripping the axe with both hands. The stranger stepped into the barn, lantern swinging, face revealed for the first time, cold, sharp features, eyes that seemed to know him already. "You don't belong in this," the man said evenly. "Step aside and live." He wiped the blood from his arm, breath ragged, but he didn't move. "Not tonight." The baby cried again, louder now, from the shadows of the rear hatch. The man's eyes darted toward the sound, and a thin smile curved his lips. He advanced. The farmer tightened his grip, heart pounding, but then, behind him, he heard the hatch slam shut. She was gone. Out into the storm. He stood alone between the intruder and the only path that led to her. The intruder advanced, blade catching the lantern light. The farmer's grip on the axe faltered, his shoulder throbbed, blood dripping down his sleeve. Every breath burned. He was running out of strength, and the stranger could see it. "You have no idea what you're protecting," the man said, circling him slowly. "Then tell me," the farmer spat, steadying himself, "before I put this axe through you." The stranger chuckled, low and cold. "She's not who you think. She isn't some lost traveler. That child," he stopped abruptly, as if he'd said too much. The pause was enough to twist the knife of curiosity deeper into the farmer's chest. His mind raced. Was the baby stolen? Was she running from them or with something far bigger at stake? But he refused to let the man see doubt. He lifted the axe again, though his arms trembled from fatigue. "You'll have to go through me," he growled. The intruder lunged. Steel met wood, sparks flying, the force rattling through his wounded body. His knees buckled, but he shoved forward, driving the man back a step. A tiny victory, but it cost him dearly, his vision blurred, his grip slippery with blood. "You can't hold out forever," the man said, pressing harder. "Give her up, and you might walk away." The farmer gritted his teeth. "If she's so dangerous, why do you want her alive?" For the first time, the intruder's expression flickered, hesitation, just for a heartbeat. And then he smirked. "You really don't want that answer." The word struck harder than the blade. The farmer stumbled, rage boiling at the evasions, yet that hesitation told him there was more, something bigger than either of them. Before he could strike again, the sound of hoofbeats cut through the storm once more. The intruder's eyes darted toward the door. "Too soon," he muttered, almost to himself. Another group was arriving. More pursuers. The farmer's chest tightened. He had minutes at best, wounded, cornered, and alone. But he straightened anyway, dragging himself upright, planting his boots firm in the straw. He might fall, but he would not fall running. The door shuddered under new fists, voices shouting. And as the intruder turned his head toward them, the farmer raised the axe again, teeth clenched through the pain. If they wanted her, they'd have to take him first. The pounding on the barn door grew violent. Voices shouted over the storm, urgent and commanding. The intruder's smirk widened. "Looks like your time is up." The farmer, chest heaving, swung the axe in a desperate arc. The stranger caught it with his blade, twisting sharply, pain ripped through his shoulder as the axe wrenched free and clattered to the floor. His last weapon gone. The intruder leaned close, voice low and sharp. "You were brave. But bravery won't save her." With a brutal shove, he knocked the farmer to the ground, his head striking the dirt hard enough to blur his vision. The door splintered. 3 more men stormed in, lanterns cutting through the dark. Their boots crushed the straw, their eyes scanning. "Where is she?" one demanded. The intruder pointed toward the rear hatch. "She went that way." The farmer's stomach twisted. Betrayal. They weren't enemies, they were the same side. He tried to push up, but a boot slammed into his chest, pinning him down. "You protected her," another sneered. "Idiot." One grabbed him by the collar, dragging him up just enough to spit the words in his face. "You don't know who she is. What she's done." The farmer's head pounded, blood warm on his temple. His body screamed to give up. But then, faint through the storm, he thought he heard it, the baby's cry. Not far. Not yet gone. That fragile sound was his flicker of hope. Proof they hadn't taken her completely. He clenched his fists, forcing air into his lungs. The leader raised his lantern closer, his expression twisting. "You should have stayed out of this. Now you're in it, whether you like it or not." He nodded to the others. "Search the fields. Bring them back alive." 2 men disappeared into the storm, the glow of their lights fading. The intruder lingered, eyes fixed on the farmer, as if weighing whether to finish him. But instead, he leaned down, his whisper hot with venom. "She isn't who she says. That child isn't what you think. Remember that, if you live long enough to regret this." And with that, he followed the others out, the barn door slamming shut, leaving the farmer broken in the dirt. Rain dripped through the roof. His body ached, his strength nearly gone. But somewhere in the distance, the baby cried again, louder this time. He forced himself to his knees, every nerve on fire, clutching the wall to stay upright. If they were alive, then there was still something left to fight for. And then, a new sound cut through the night. Not riders. Not voices. A sharp crack, metallic, from the tree line. Gunfire. The crack of gunfire tore the night apart. He staggered to the broken doorway, clutching the frame for balance. Lanterns flickered in the fields. Shadows darted between trees. Another shot rang out, closer this time, followed by a cry of pain. His breath caught. Was it hers? Or one of them? He stumbled forward, every muscle screaming in protest, but his legs carried him into the storm. Rain plastered his shirt to his skin, blood mixing with water as he forced himself across the mud. Then he saw it, her silhouette. She was running, clutching the child, slipping through the tall grass. And behind her, the pursuers closed in. His heart pounded. He had seconds to choose: collapse here and let her fate be sealed, or throw himself back into the fire. He tightened his jaw. He couldn't stop now. Not after all this. He grabbed a broken fence post from the ground, his only weapon, and charged. The first man never saw him coming, wood cracked against skull, lantern shattering into sparks. The others spun, shouting, blades flashing in the rain. "Run," he roared at her, his voice raw. "Don't stop." For the first time, she hesitated, her eyes locking with his. Fear, yes, but something else too. Something unspoken. Then she vanished into the trees, the baby's cry trailing with her. Steel slashed across his back. He stumbled, teeth gritted, swinging wildly, desperate to buy her distance. Every second was borrowed time. He knew it. They knew it. But then, one of the men shouted over the storm. "She's not just running with a child, she's running with proof." The words cut through him like another blade. Proof. Of what? Proof against who? It didn't matter. All that mattered was she had it, and they would kill her for it. His vision blurred, strength draining fast. He shoved another man back, barely keeping his footing. If he stopped, if he fell, she was finished. And then he heard it, not the baby's cry, not the storm, but the thunder of more hooves. From the tree line, another group rode hard, lanterns blazing, shouts rising. But these weren't the same men. Their colors were different, their weapons drawn, aimed at everyone in the field. A new force had arrived. And no one could tell whose side they were on. The storm swallowed the fields in chaos. Two groups clashed under the torrent, steel against steel, shouts cutting through the thunder. Lanterns swung wildly, throwing twisted shadows across the mud. The farmer staggered forward, half blind, gripping the broken post like a lifeline. His legs trembled, his lungs burned, but still he pushed toward the trees where she had vanished. A rider thundered past, nearly trampling him. Another man fell screaming to the ground, blood dark against the rain. None of it mattered. He had one thought only: find her. Then a hand seized his collar, yanking him backward. He slammed into the mud, gasping as a boot pressed against his chest. It was the intruder, the one from the barn, blade still in hand. "You fool," he snarled, leaning close. "You think you're saving her? You're delivering her straight into their hands." The farmer tried to shove him off, but his strength was gone. The blade pressed against his throat. "Why?" he rasped. "Why her? Why the child?" For the first time, the intruder's mask cracked. His voice dropped. "That's no ordinary child. That baby is proof of everything they've been hiding." The farmer's blood ran cold. Proof of what? But the intruder's eyes flicked toward the riders battling in the storm. "Ask them, if you live long enough." A gunshot cracked. The intruder staggered, dropping his blade, blood spreading across his coat. He fell to the side, lantern light spilling over his lifeless face. The farmer froze, chest heaving. One enemy gone. But the words echoed, no ordinary child. Through the haze he saw her again, at the edge of the tree line, clutching the baby, cornered by 2 armed riders from the new group. One of them shouted, "Don't hurt her. We need her alive. Alive. Not safe. Not free. Alive." It struck him like a hammer. Everyone wanted her alive, for reasons no one would say. He forced himself upright, legs buckling beneath him, and stumbled toward her. She saw him, eyes wide, torn between terror and something else, trust. "Run," he tried to shout, but his voice broke. The riders closed in. She clutched the baby tighter, tears streaking her face in the rain. And then, just before they reached her, she screamed something he never expected. "He's the father." The world seemed to stop. Every shout, every clash of steel, every crack of thunder blurred into silence. He froze, the ground spinning beneath him. The riders turned their heads toward him, eyes narrowing. And in that single, shattering moment, he realized everything was about to explode. The world froze around him after her cry, "He's the father." Every eye turned his way. The rain beat harder, thunder cracked, but he felt only the weight of her words. "I'm not," he began, but her gaze silenced him. It wasn't accusation. It was protection. She was using his name, his presence, to shield the child. And in that moment he understood, whether by blood or by choice, that child's fate was now his. The riders lunged. He staggered forward, half dead, yet fueled by something new. Not rage. Not duty. Resolve. He fought with nothing but raw will, shoving one man aside, wrenching the other's blade from his grip. "Stay down," he roared, his voice carrying through the storm. For the first time, they hesitated, not at his strength, but at the fire in his eyes. The woman clutched the baby tighter, tears mingling with the rain. "You don't understand," she cried. "They'll never stop unless we end it here." And finally, truth began to break through the fog. The child wasn't stolen. The child wasn't cursed. The baby was living proof of corruption, of powerful men who preached purity while hiding their own crimes. She had run because she refused to let them bury the truth. The farmer's chest heaved. His whole life had been survival, nothing more. But now he saw it, he wasn't just shielding strangers in the dark, he was standing against the kind of power that kept people like him down his entire life. He met her gaze. "Then we end it." Together they turned. The riders regrouped, but the storm itself seemed to shift, roaring in their favor. Blow after blow, step after step, they pushed back until the field was theirs. One final strike dropped the last enemy into the mud. Silence followed, broken only by the baby's soft cry. The woman collapsed to her knees, clutching her child. He dropped beside her, his body broken but his spirit unshaken. "You had every reason to run," he said quietly. "But you didn't run alone." She looked at him, eyes shimmering. "Neither did you." Dawn broke, the first light cutting through the storm. For the first time, the world looked new, washed clean, full of promise. The riders were gone. The men who hunted her defeated. The child, safe. He rose unsteadily, extending a hand to her. She took it, their fingers tightening, not as strangers but as allies bound by fire. The storm had tried to break them. Instead, it had forged them. And as the sun rose higher, painting the horizon gold, he knew with absolute certainty, this was not the end. It was the beginning.